Climate justice means that everyone has the right to use clean air and the duty to protect it, regardless of the state, ethnicity, gender, age, or religion. People in poor countries emit 0.5 tons of CO2 per person per year, but Germany produces 8.9 tons. The United States, Canada and Australia emit more than 15 tons per year and the world average is 5 tons. According to World Risk Index, people in developing countries are more vulnerable to climate crisis because they are live in less nutritious and poor living condition compared to people in rich countries. In other words, the effects of climate crisis are felt most acutely by people who are least responsible for causing the problem. This is not fair and violates climate justice. I want to help the people of developing countries cope with the climate crisis in a similar environment to those of rich countries through the Saemaul Undong. Here are 5 steps to apply the Saemaul Undong, and today I'm going to explain the second step. First, let's look at 3 key points. Saemaul Undong is largely divided into Environment Improving Project, Income Increasing Project and Reforming Consciousness in Communities. Environment improving projects include renovating houses, reconstructing roads and building facilities, etc. Income increasing project includes solidifying foundation of living, varying cultivation and diversifying business, etc. Reforming consciousness in communities include exterminating bad habits and villages enlightenment, etc. Courses at beginning stage should be analogous to convenience and interest of majority of residents. Courses at beginning stage can incite expectation and motivation. And choose an appropriate project that inspires thought that Saemaul Undong improves our village and life this much and we should do our best. Saemaul project be an exercise for a cooperative work. Pay special attention not to make it a superficial project and attract only small number of townspeople. Courses at beginning stage should be analogous to convenience and interest of majority of residents. Courses at beginning stage can incite expectation and motivation. And choose an appropriate project that inspires thought that Saemaul Undong improves our village and life this much and we should do our best. Saemaul project be an exercise for a cooperative work. Pay special attention not to make it a superficial project and attract only small number of townspeople. 1. Can it be accomplished by residents' spontaneity? Let's consider range of the result and ratio of followers in the beginning stage. In case of objection, reasons and validity should be reflected. 2. Is it suitable to the traits and conditions of a village? Consider nature, geography, history, and traits of population composition in the village. 3. Is it eligible to the ability of villages? Cooperative and educational level, resource, labor, and nature have to be regarded. 4. Can this project bring long-term development? Relation between expectation for future development and current business, my and next villages, and entire town should be reflected as well. With the aim of economic self-support, the type of location of the village should be determined. Is it a fishing, farming, or mountain village? How close to city? How is the traffic condition to near commercial areas? Assess property to see if they need aid or not. Here comes checklists. How much land is available? Is there any fallow that can be developed? How is the nature of the soil? How is average economic strength? Are there any public facilities that can be applied? How is the quality and accommodation of facilities? How are the educational and technical levels of villages? Examine cooperative level to see if they can manage adversity. Consider conditions in circumference, policies of central and local government, and trend of neighboring nations. Just as you can't build a building without blueprint, designing a project is essential process. Don't expect windfall. Evaluate the current status objectively and plan accurately. Approximate estimates should be avoided. Plan correctly and in detail according to the inspection made in advance. Referring to various opinions from many workers prevents from making errors. The original copy of a plan acts as a guide during the whole procedure of a project. Make it as a document and let it be available to every villager at hand. 1. The number of participants, project objectives, project details, and scale of the project should be considered. 2. Scale of necessary financial resources like a machine, tools, kinds and quantity of a seed, the demand of land, building, and movable estate, scale of total money demand should be included. 3. Ways to procure necessary funds like route of purchasing items, methods to procure funds, financing, loaning, cooperative labor, methods of payment, monthly installment, paying off, reimburse, spot transaction, distribute dividend should be considered. 4. Ways to put labor force in and divide workload like kinds of work expected, ways to put labor force in, division of work according to a part, synchronous cooperative work by turns, division of workload, work boundary and responsible persons for each part of work. 5. Quantity of consuming materials and ways to procure them. For example, fertilizer, fodder, agricultural medicines, kinds and amounts of consuming materials, route of acquiring, time to buy, etc. 6. Ways to distribute information. For instance, necessary technology, route of distribution, people, institutions, practicing areas in the field, magazines, ways to distribute, inviting instructors, self-education by an advance runner, sharing booklets, etc. 7. Route and methods to sell, in case of income-oriented project. For example, routes to sell, methods to sell, collaborative or individual selling at a producing center, direct transaction on the field, shipping method, temporary order and after processing, methods to divide dividend, formula to accumulate public fund and place to use, etc. 8. Developing plan afterwards like goals to achieve in the first round, main issues in the second round, plans for long term should be included. Finally, devices at emergency also be considered elements to the project plan. Goals of the project was providing self-reviving base by raising rapeseed in a large quantity. The land was secured, but the problem was the seeds and fertilizer. Ways to resolve those problem was making a contract with a company consuming rapeseed, being supplied with seeds and fertilizers from a company and providing the whole production to the company. They used the individual's amount of labor input and yield as the basis for distribution during joint labor, and set aside 10% of the proceeds as a joint fund to cover their own supply and demand of seeds and fertilizers. They also established a secondary development plan, such as harvesting rapeseed flowers, excluding contract quantities, and starting a beekeeping business with sales proceeds. Finally, villagers succeeded in building a plant in the village by increasing the production of rapeseed for the long-term development plan. At the beginning of a project, the villagers usually say, "What can we do? We have lived like this for long period of time. Why bother to change? We don't want to waste our precious time on unfruitful things. Are you out of your mind or something?" At first glance, these reactions look like they are lack of the will to improve their lifestyle. However, the real reason of these reactions is not their lack of the will but their lack of self-confidence. They are just waiting for someone else going for it first. They look totally indifferent however, with their bad memory of being taken advantage from others, they only keep a distance a little bit, but they are never indifferent. Rather they pay a lot of attention to it, saying to themselves, let's wait and see. You have to trust the fact that true heart would work without fail. There is one good example in Korea. Even though many leaders were slapped in the face by villagers in the beginning, the project succeeded in the end. You have to persuade people constantly. If a leader gives up his or her persuading after a few times of trying, villagers will be disappointed, saying, "See, I told you." Many examples from Korea show the fact that a leader visited every house every day, walking 20 to 30 miles, suffering from footsore. You must have a genuine pride. Sometimes a leader has to beg, maybe given a cold reception in front of a house, or maybe slapped by a villager. Under all circumstances, a leader has to understand villagers' situation and should not be mad at them. Giving them a good example is the most important matter. There is a case of persuading certain villagers who had to sacrifice their lands to broaden streets in the village. A leader abandoned his land, destroying the fence of his own house, and decided to persuade an old man who had to sacrifice huge amount of land. The leader started to visit the owner 2 times a day. At first the owner refused to meet him, but after a while he was moved by his steady effort and surrendered. After this incident, villagers who were against the project withdrew their objection. Here is another case of persuading male villagers indifferent to building public well and public laundry place. Members of Women's Association helped great and small matters in village, such as attending funeral and cleansing sewage in village steadily. Finally, they won approval of the project through community meeting. Here is a case of a fishing village called a cat village. It was a remote seaside fishing village with 173 families and 804 residents. A big projecting part of a cat rock, located in seashore, cut off the village from traffic with outside world and the sea. With a produce yielded in an average 0.6 ha barren land, they lived worrying about meals. In community meeting, a leader suggested breaking the rock and cutting a path leading to outside world. Furthermore, move the debris to waterfront and cultivate oyster. Reaction was fanatic. People said that touching the rock would bring disaster. After forming a task force consisting of 5 relatives, they started to break the rock only with hammers and levels over 2 months. People said at first, "Let's wait and see what's happening. It's the weirdest thing ever. It will take 100 years to complete it." However, their mockery changed into compassion, and they started to participate in it. Soon all the young men in the village decided to participate it, and after 6 months 1/5 of the work was completed. Finally, old men, the worst objectors for this project, supported it enthusiastically, and every resident participated in it by taking turns. 2 years after the project started, the cat rock disappeared from the village. 350,000 rocks were dropped into the sea and cultivation bed for oyster was made. Within 3 years after this event, thin-shelled surf clam and lugworm as well as oyster became special products in the village. Along with these special products, they could secure additional farmland by building sea wall through cooperative work. When a new project is given, villagers usually say, "We live from hand to mouth. Why the hell bother to start a new project? What do you know about this? Can you take responsibility for that? What difference does that make?" These reactions come from deep anxiety. They worry they might lose what they have now while trying a new project. This deep-rooted anxiety cannot be removed easily. They often say words demonstrating disregard, distrust, and contempt, hiding their real fear. Those words are just because they distrust the result, not because they show aversion toward the leaders. Seeing is believing. Showing them the result is the best policy. Only after villagers see the results and get provoked, they will run into the movement enthusiastically. In S village, only the leader started a project alone. The town had 56 families and 315 residents, located near highway connecting two consuming cities. Most of the villagers were poor landed peasants with average 0.5 ha farmland and mainly earned money as farm servants or day laborers. The leader, who came back to his hometown after dropped out of college, decided to do high-grade horticulture after considering location conditions of the town and persuaded villagers. Most villagers ignored, distrusted, and even derided him, saying what he said was totally moonshine. People despised him as a jobless loser even studying at college. For the young men in the town, the leader provided a class to teach skills about cultivating plants by inviting a professor from agricultural department in his college. However, residents showed constant indifference, saying that the lecture was beyond their intellectual ability. In winter, by way of showing an example, the leader cultivated cucumbers and tomatoes in greenhouse alone. For 60 days he made 20 times as much as the other villagers earned by raising barley, staple in that village. Right after villagers saw the unbelievable result, they were eager to learn it. Delivering skills and multiplying profits by sharing the essential materials. Within a year many dwellers started high-grade horticulture, and from the second year they planned livestock farming to obtain many organic fertilizers. 3 years after that the town could have 30 cows, 100 goats, and 50 pigs. Along with it, they reclaimed mountain and planted persimmon trees there, and doubled their income. In I village, youngsters gathered. There were 59 families and 301 residents in the town, and the staple of this village was rice. Since 80% of the land belonged to 5 to 6 great landlords, most residents were poor. The leader, a retired mechanic officer, suggested making mechanical farming group. The idea came out of from the fact that most villagers did not have their own land, and the neighborhood was suitable for raising barley and rice. Most villagers were in half-doubt, and treated the idea as daydream. With retirement pay and loan he bought one reaping machine. He reaped all the barley with that machine and proved its effectiveness. It led a mechanical farming group consisted of 51 people to be made. To raise money to procure machine for mass automation, women cut reed and made tapestry and men made strand and straw bag collectively. With this money 3 rice planters and 2 combines were purchased and kept as public property. Several divided groups worked as subcontractors for neighborhood and absentee landlords. 50% of its early income was saved as public fund. 7 years after that, 11 rice planters, 5 tractors, 8 binders, 14 water pumps, 40 pest repellents, public barn for these machineries, and plant for rice pounding were provided. Choosing a project that produces quick result is better. Group discussion is one of the most powerful tools to bring about collective intelligence, and I think it is thanks to this group discussion that the Saemaul Undong was able to act as a driving force for Korea's development. Group discussion is a best way to collect ideas from each participants to solve problems we faced. By applying this method, we can identify the problems of the village unit and find solutions from a microscopic point of view, and we can also apply them to solving the climate crisis facing humanity today from a macroscopic point of view. There are two ways to collect consensus among the villagers: a general meeting in which more than half of the total residents participate, and a group discussion among less than 10 people. The contents of discussion are very profound because the number of its members is very small. Since all of the members can have a chance to speak their opinions, public opinion could be reflected equally. Since meeting is held in relatively small place, a few members' disturbing actions such as long speech, filibuster, fault-finding and backbiting could be avoided. So, the efficiency increases. It is a place for mutual education. Members present their comparative cases. It is a training place. Villagers learn democratic debating attitude by themselves. It is a very powerful device. Ideas and will gather simultaneously. One. In order to carry out the discussion effectively, the leader presents a common agenda for discussion. 2. Group the whole participants into units. Each unit consists of less than 10 people. Select a chairperson and a writer for each unit. Chairperson can serve as a writer as well. 3. Proceed discussion in order as follows. First, share the present circumstances of the occasion. Second, what are the problems to solve? Specify them. Third, what is the solution? How can we improve it? The conclusion should be the ways to improve. Fourth, how can we put them into practice? The conclusion should be a concrete solution. Fifth, what are precedent cases and information to refer? The conclusion should be a complementary matters to the solution. Sixth, what should the whole group or individuals do to carry the solution into practice? The result should be a decision on a course of action to practice. Lastly, summary the resolutions and finish the discussion. 4. Every member should give his or her opinion at least one time. If the atmosphere is passive, force every member to comment at least one time. 5. When discussion is over, the chairperson summarizes determination and let members be aware of it clearly. 6. If there are many group discussions, set the time to discuss and share the decisions when every member is together. In certain cases, only the chairperson of groups will gather. 7. After the leader collects and summarizes the entire opinions, he or she reports final determination and agenda that need additional discussion. Chairpersons should create comfortable atmospheres so that all the members can speak their opinions and cases clearly and concretely. Result has to list individuals' courses of action to practice very concretely and in detail. When the subject is general, means dealing with village affairs, mix members of a group discussion regardless of their class, blood relation and closeness. Different factors and trends among these members will help communicate and understand. Thus, each member would behave and speak more responsible remarks. When the subject is special, means cooperative working system and income-oriented project, divide the meeting groups according to members' high relevancy such as neighborhood, working group, and sectional group. The important issues, electing staffs and the deciding project are handled by the village's general meeting, where more than half of the residents gather to pass a resolution against or in favor of them. The advantage of the general meeting is that first of all, contents of projects can be publicized and announced to the whole residents at the same time. And you can collect residents' opinions at a time. Decisions once made in community meeting carry binding force. Boost whole residents' participation in a project. Let the whole residents be aware of democratic procedures and methods required to debate. Does the village already have resident community meeting or meeting strategies similar to it? If it has, have a thorough grasp of its functions, merits, and demerits clearly, and take advantages of them. If it hasn't, make them while proceeding with a project. In what degree does the tradition of clan society exist? If the tradition of clan society is strong, change the existing methods of meeting little by little. If the tradition of a clan society is weak, use modern community meeting methods in the beginning. Aren't there enough drafted labor and paying labor? If residents have been mobilized unilaterally many times, they are not likely to show passion to community meeting. Persuasion and publicity in advance are expected. If residents have been mobilized paying labor run by government office many times, expectation for income will be high. Community meeting has to be summoned with having a plan for this. There is a slim chance to attract many residents to community meeting from the beginning. The bigger the effective project and the more experience about modern community meeting villages have, the more enthusiastically villagers participate in a project. Example from Korea shows that the average participating rate was 50 to 60% in the beginning, barely over the majority. However, as the project advances, 80 to 90% villagers participated in the project. One. Prepare the subjects to discuss. Publicize actively the subjects to be notified to and attract residents. 2. Prepare the place of meeting. If there is a place used regularly, use it. Otherwise, choose a place which can accommodate the whole residents and is easy to access for all residents. 3. Inform the meeting schedule like subjects, place, and time. And notify the schedule at least 7 days ahead except an emergency. Make the notice large, and put it in easily visible way, in public places where many people gather. 1. Declaration of opening by the village headman or chairman. Singing national anthem and reciting rules of the community will excite mood of the meeting. 2. Explanation of subject by a proposer or a leader. Make it brief and short, and refer only its point. To improve its effectiveness, use handouts, diagrams, charts, and pictures. 3. Discussion. First, give every man a chance to speak equally. Second, designate passive people to speak out. Third, don't let any influential or old people ignore the procedure of the meeting. Fourth, restrict subjects irrelevant to the meeting, like slanders, speaking the same stories repeatedly, and speeches too long and pointless. 4. Vote. You can take the vote by show of hands if the atmosphere is casual and free. But you'd better use secret voting if it is authoritative. 5. Announcement of results and closing the meeting. 1. Make a plan that can accommodate all residents and manage it systematically. 2. Decide the whole schedule and procedure of a project in advance. Example, is it working together simultaneously or by taking turns? 3. Within the consented working schedule, divide the work according to villagers' age, gender and capabilities. There is an example, improvement of waterways. The decision was preparing against flood by putting in good order of river around, consolidating bank, paving the road leading to the bank with pebbles from the river and forming flowerbed. The ways of work was decided as cooperative work by neighborhood by taking turns. The roles were divided by class. The adolescent and manhood were responsible for dredging the riverbed, carrying stones, and paving road with gravel, while the women were responsible for carrying stones, meal preparation, and planting fields along the river. The elderly were in charge of taking care of infants and toddlers, such as the creation of flower beds on the road bank, and teenagers were in charge of delivery stones, pulling weed out of the bank, and compost making. Example: establishing studying village. It was a rural area neighboring to pleasure quarters in suburb. Distracting atmosphere threatened teenagers studying. Women group initiated to establish a village library and study room for teenagers. To raise fund, villagers worked at wages such as planting rice and pulling out weed. They rented fallow, yielded vegetables, and sold them in markets directly. Manhood, moved by women's efforts, patrolled neighbors at night to control public morals. Elderly people volunteered in taking care of babies, teaching Chinese characters, and running etiquette class. Supporters with money and interest and administrators donated land and properties. Finally, a village library and study room was established. Feast for elderly people was held on the opening day. Schools nearby and from cities contributed books. It is a place to study not only for teenagers but also for adolescents. Children and teenagers are villages' future. A lot work to children under their responsibility. It could be a live educational field where students can learn cooperative spirit, responsibility, and pride. Example 1. Children's Rabbit Unit. Children tried breeding rabbits as a source of protein and tuition as well. Children got fodder and fed on rabbits cooperatively. Later they started to raise pheasants and traditional chickens. They devoted themselves to their work. Thus, there was not anything which needed adults' help. Example 2. Teenagers procuring tuition. For the purpose of procuring tuition themselves, teenagers reclaimed hillock and cultivated beans by rotation. After harvesting, they made fermented soybeans with it. Fermented soybeans is essential ingredient of soybean paste, which is also made by fermenting, and there were a lot of demand from city dwellers. They sold them at permanent markets neighboring city, and procured their tuition. Elderly people are the bundle of wisdom in Saemaul Undong. You should always ask for advice and feedback. Give them charge of things that need little energy but needs a lot of caution. Villagers can entrust them with an important project because they are sincere and have a great number of experiences. Don't forget to educate children and teenagers about safety rules and techniques which are needed at work in advance. List all the names and quantities of items come across. Among the listed items, exclude existing and unnecessary. Items that can be replaced by other items should be omitted as well. Make a separate list on the items that can be procured by residents. According to priority, keep residual items in order and readjust quantity. Listing through a group discussion is the most effective way. Let's prepare like this. 1. To prevent disorder, notify personnel bringing in advance and confirm them. 2. Among the purchasing list, leave out things that can be obtained from donations. 3. Rent extremely expensive items or things that would be used only one time. 4. Purchase necessary items by public fund. 5. For each item, decide how to purchase it after checking the merits and demerits between financing and paying off. 6. When purchasing machinery, people have to get warrant, especially for used one, and instruction. 7. For bulk and constant purchase, unify suppliers and get discount. 8. Regulate purchasing timing for the items that have different prices per different seasons. If there is a public storage, save them there. And select General Manager, and have him enter all the items in the ledger. If there is not a public storage, have each family keep one of the items. In this case, make a list on the items and educate the keeper how to store it. Appoint a person in charge and manage them permanently. The responsible person takes care of checking out an inn and maintaining it. To prevent chaos, record check out an inn, and to avoid errors in the plan, maintain it well. If the item is used for personal purpose, charge it and save the fee for public fund. To avoid waste, set strict daily limit of consumables and keep an accurate account every day. To avoid breakdown of machinery and misuse of building materials, educate the usage in advance and keep cautions posted at storage place. There is an example for how to use cement. 1. It takes 10 hours to solidify it. Thus, be careful not to step on it or heat it within 10 hours. 2. Keep them from getting humid by separating them from the earth by 30 cm. Keep dangerous materials at a place far from the center of the town and take a good care of them. If there is a center, there is no need to visit every house at every time to impart information. News would be on the notice board routinely. No need to meet people to promulgate technique. Education could be given at the center. No need to move meeting place. People could discuss about the project stably to their heart's content. No need to wonder about the progress. People could check daily results on the notice board. If you have one already, get a place for Saemaul Undong and put daily results on the notice board. Responsible person for each section stops by the place every day to collect results and check necessary matters. Put flags or posters standing for Saemaul Undong in front of the center. This will remind villagers of Saemaul Undong ordinarily. When every villager works together, the center is used as dining room or day care center. Let people use this place as a meeting place. Different group of people could get together and share information here in the different time of a day, early afternoon for elderly people and children, late afternoon for teenagers, and night time for manhood and women. Put notice board at the center and let this place full of information such as great and small matters among villagers, news about Saemaul Undong, and tips for technique, education and life. If you haven't any, find a place where can be used even temporarily. There would be a place villagers often gather. To begin with, use that place as the center. A certain potentate's private place or religious institution also can be used as the center, only if the villagers don't have antipathy against it. If anything as mentioned earlier is not possible, use the leader's house as the center. In this case, the house should be large, and the location of the house should be convenient for reach. When building a new village hall as a center, it is recommended that the location is a good place for all residents to use, a place with good accessibility, and an additional building to build. Use materials that are available within the town. Shorten the period of construction and strengthen affection for it though residents participating. Clean and put stuffs in order after using the center to avoid giving bad impression to other users. When many residents use the center, provide a sheet for reservation at the entrance to avoid conflicting schedules between users. If a literate rate of the village is high, use many pictures on notice board. We are doing Saemaul Undong. We are doing this because of this and that. Cheer up. If people see and hear these clichés often, they will be sick and tired of it. Thus, create an atmosphere that could boost Saemaul Undong's spirit implicitly. Internally common emblems such as song, flag, and badge help unite members together. Externally they publicize Saemaul Undong and make its identity settle down naturally. Saemaul flag is proclamation. Hang Saemaul flag at the entrance of center and village. It will incite people's curiosity. Then, how would villagers reply? They will say that we are doing Saemaul Undong and Saemaul Undong is this and that. They will put all of their energy in explaining Saemaul Undong. This will act as self-proclamation and self-promise. They see the flag whenever they in and out of the village hall, and it reminds them of its spirit over and over again. And when people work cooperatively, put small flags at the place to boost atmosphere. Songs give energy. Compose a song for the village. New song or existing song with new lyrics will do. If possible, use melodies of traditional songs played when people work together, and use it when they work together. Camaraderie develops from the moment when they sing the song to learn. In Korea, Song of Saemaul Undong movement was composed and sung whenever people worked together. Even the song was sung before the meeting begins. Expand emblems to cap, badge, and scarf after starting with flag and song. Whenever there are great and small matters among villagers, notify them, help each other, and share the joy and sorrow. Help the family in need resulted from unexpected accidents with the public fund. Loan to the family that needs big amount of money from the joint fund with low interest. Establish scholarship association to help students in the village. Give scholarship regularly and let as many students get its benefits as possible. Award people who practice virtues encouraged by villagers such as great mothers, daughter-in-laws, sons, and nice students. Hold a party to celebrate them. Let's praise and award people who work hard and achieve goals of Saemaul Undong earlier than due day or who achieve more than planned. Celebrate them on ceremonial day for the completion or anniversary day. To avoid trouble, clarify process based on objective standard. Hold a public gala and take care of neighbors in need during festive days and the season of harvest. Throw a party for elders regularly and make it a custom. Every resident get together to prepare it by the rule of Saemaul Undong. The most terrible thing for the movement is not failure of the project but conflict and separation among villages. Only if Saemaul's spirit is alive, failure can be restored quickly, but if the spirit is disappeared, that's it. Two main elements that damage Saemaul's spirit are as followings. 1. When information is not shared properly. 2. When staffs are corrupted and hold a monopoly. Some leaders and officers tend to be lazy at reporting after Saemaul Undong gets on the track. Don't be loose on reporting and listening opinions like the beginning. Even after people leave, the system stays. Maintain intelligence system well. In order to do so, settled group discussion, frequently notify within the center and regulate reports of community meeting. Publishing local newspapers is also helpful. To communicate smoothly, villagers make up teams. Each team is in charge of reporting, delivering notice, and collecting opinions from the small number of residents and illiterates in remote places. Representatives, leaders, and residents of the village sign jointly as for depositor of the joint fund and registrant of public property to prevent corruption. Public fund can be used by the decision made in community meeting, and its results must be reported. Close account about consumed materials by 1 day, keep an accurate account after completion, and report it in the residents' community meeting. Hesitation to take an action on corruption, due to humaneness, could result in suspicion among villagers. By the name of the general meeting of villagers, give a chance to explain to suspect. After the suspicion turns out to be true, the person should be fired instantly. Of course, in the case of interest intervention, the suspect will get royal summons from the general meeting of villagers, and right after his fault is found out, the person has to leave the position. In this case, whether the project run by the suspect will be kept or not will be decided by its magnitude of gain and loss. What really matters is the understanding by the villagers. Thus, if the project is promising and the fault can be corrected, there is not any reason to stop the project. Other conflicts among residents should be handled by self-regulating rules. As long as they influence on public project, a little intervention is allowed. One. When resources required to achieve a long-cherished desire are lack. 2. If it is related to national policy. 3. When self-supporting bases are lost by war, disease, famine, and flood. 4. A great number of labor forces are needed due to natural disaster. 1. Central government, local government, and district administrator. 2. Domestic supporting groups. 3. Overseas supporting groups. 4. City dwellers from the town. 5. Religious groups. You'd better exclude self-sufficient parts and attach detailed plans for a project. 1. Abstract about the current status in the town. 2. Contents of the project requiring assistance, necessity and outline of the project. 3. Detailed plans for the project, plans by the order of day and self-supplying resources and labor force, etc. 4. Detailed contents about supporting request, usage and quantity of necessary items, and the kind and the number of assisting labor force. 5. Undertaking assisting material, safekeeping and managing, and making rules to use. To develop it as a permanent relief force, you need to report the progress to the supporter often. Send something as a mark of appreciation, such as letter of appreciation and local products. Enlarge interchanging human resources such as inviting to commemoration exercises, dispatching service group, and inspecting village. Broaden interchange and cooperation in technology, information, and education areas.